Hello and welcome to another special edition of the Go Fish Village podcast. I'm the host of Go Fish Village, Joshua Mercer, where we help teach people just like you how to create financial freedom through real estate. Today we have a special guest in the building, a guy I just got acquainted with and met actually over Facebook, man. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time out to come and drop some gems today. Gentleman by the name of Corey Oliver owns about 150 units with his dad and manages 100 more on the south side of Chicago. So this is definitely a special episode. Corey, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Sure, man. So tell me, man, how does one get to 150 units and managing 100? That sounds like a daunting task.
We got in back in about 2005. So as I was in undergrad, my dad had shifted from the nonprofit sector into real estate, and so we started off by flipping, and then he decided that he wanted to get into different strategies. So we shifted out of the buy, rehab, and sell into the buy, rehab, and hold. And so we focused primarily on distressed communities, somewhere we could go in and create value as stability. And so we became part of the Lawndale Restoration Program, and we were able to pick up our first two flat through the Lawndale Restoration, and then we picked up another two flat. The next thing, we got a bundle of two flats and three flats, and then our biggest one at that point was an 18 unit where we got that from the city. We bought it for it was like one of those buildings that had been on the city list, vacant, abandoned. It cost too much to repair, so they ended up selling it to us for super cheap. I can't remember what it was, but we ended up putting about $1.2 million in rehab into it. We actually still currently hold that one, and so I mean, it just kind of went from there. And so we had only managed our own stuff for pretty much our whole entire existence. And then about 2019, we got approached by our lending partner who has a subsidiary that does receiverships. And they asked us if we wanted to help manage some of these properties that were coming through in receivership. There was a company that was based out of Ohio that had acquired about 1,000 units, and they were in default with the city on them. And so we ended up picking up, it was a 18 unit building, but it only had 6 occupied units. And we just started managing that on behalf of the receiver. And then they gave us another one, and then they gave us another one, then they gave us another one. Next thing, we had 130 units of the receivership portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we decided, you know what, hey, maybe this is a viable option, so we ended up, putting our name out there and picking up some private owners. I started managing a property over on 78th and Bishop, a 20 unit for some California owners, and then we picked up a 2 flat and a 3 flat here and there, and then we get an 18 unit. And so, I mean, it just kind of went from there. And now we've become kind of known as the troubled building helpers, so when landlords are in a situation where their building isn't performing, they call us in, and we kind of go in and put together a plan for them to get to stabilization. And so that's kind of how we are right now.
So how were you guys able to, like lot of people try to stray away from distressed or quote unquote headaches, but it seems like you guys are looking for those things and you see opportunities. Like what is it about that makes you and your pops attracted to it?
Well, part of it is neighborhood stabilization, right? We're here to service our community. So we're here to go into these places where people are saying there's no value and find the value, not only find the value, but also put value into it, and create stabilized living conditions in areas that people aren't necessarily comfortable going into. So my dad's background is he's the founding executive director of Streetwise. So
Okay.
Anybody in Chicago knows what Streetwise is, right?
Yeah.
The homeless sell the newspaper. So that's where I come up from, right? So when I was a kid, I would be up there with the vendors hearing their stories. He helped pretty much create that from the bottom up. And, and so he takes a lot of those philosophies that we had there with helping create stability and things like that to what we do in housing. And construction is daunting, you go into some of these buildings and you start to see the problems, and and you just see the dollar signs that come along with it. But I mean, that's why majority, I mean, I've probably walked through about 10,000 units in Chicago. And I pretty much tell my dad, like, if the kitchen isn't falling apart and I'm not happy, at this point, we've been doing it so long, like, I want the building falling apart. There's a lot of growth. We're also licensed general contractors, so it creates a lot of opportunity for us on.
Y'all taking all the money, huh?
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there for you to, do a lot of different, financial wizardry when you control construction as well as, property management as well as ownership.
Damn. No, that's what's up. So when you buying these units, are you like, how are your tenants? Are you putting Section 8 tenants or general market tenants in there?
We do, like, so for example, our 60 unit building, majority of the tenants have all been market rate. But we're not, we're not against Section 8 or putting in Section 8. It's been a different market with the pandemic, trying to vet tenants and get through everything and understand everything, so, but I mean, it's a mix, I mean, we don't just do Section 8, like we work with Volunteers of America who do veteran housing. So we place veterans. We'll do Section 8, we'll do Alexian Brothers, we'll do Thresholds, so I mean, we definitely work through a lot of different subsidiaries to, who are subsidizing housing for people. But then, we also try to create a melting pot, right? So we want the market raters, we want the, the stabilized people, because they're also going to bring disposable income into those communities, right? So you bring in, somebody who has a legitimate career path into these communities, who have disposable income, who want to live here, who want to better these communities, who want to help stabilize. Then you also start to affect the businesses in the area, and we hire locally. And we generally try to supply, get a lot of our supplies locally, so we try to support our communities that we're in.
Damn. So I mean, when you guys first started, was that the goal? Because you started off, doing development, flipping houses, and then you kind of wind up with 100+ units, man. Was that the goal when you started?
Um, you know, I would say no. It was like, what can we do? So obviously when we started, flipping, it was before like all the HGTV shows were out, and it was before it was like the new hotness, and so, but there was an element to it, that was exciting and things like that. And I think once we sat down and got to a position where we wanted to do the buy and hold, yeah, it was to maximize, right? Create generational wealth, create a situation to where our buildings will provide for us for years to come. And so, it started off with, let's get 10 units, and then let's get 30 units, and then let's get 50 units, and then 100 units. And then once we got to about 100 units, it was like, okay, the biggest building that we've ever had was 20 units. So, here's this 60 units that is on the market, to which I'll be honest with you, I was told no a few times
What you
before.
mean? What you mean told no?
So my dad was not interested originally in doing it.
Oh, okay.
It was too big. It was too complex. It was kind of out of our lane a little bit. And then it was also under contract. So there was already a buyer for it. And but I ran the numbers on it, and I'm just like, man, this could be, this could be a real steal. Like we could mess up a whole lot and still come out, okay.
Yeah.
And then it was, and so then opportunity zones came out, and we were able to create an opportunity fund with one of our investors and make this an opportunity zone deal. And so, once that kind of kicked out, then it was like, okay, what do we do with this buyer that's in front of us? So I started making some phone calls, trying to find out who the buyer was in front of us. At this point, they had already had 3 extensions. The brokers on the sell side were talking to our brokers like, look, man, just put in an offer. We'll put you into second place. We don't think that this thing is ever going to get to the closing table. And so we were like, okay. So that's what I did. I ended up convincing everybody that let's just go into second position. And so that's what we did. And then, of course, once we went into second position, the seller backed out on the next extension that the guy was trying to get. They're like, nah, we're good. And so then we ended up sliding in and was able to get it closed June of 2019, I think it was. And we started construction shortly after that.
So a lot of people ask, like, well, the more I've been in real estate, people say, man, if you're gonna get in real estate, it's best to start with, like, why get a single family or a 2 or 3 unit? It's best to have the more doors, the better, because you got them all in one place. Is that do you agree with that?
Um, well, I mean, it kind of depends on your situation. You know, the more doors in one place, the higher the barrier to entry is. So yeah, I mean, if you have 50, 60, 70, 100 grand just laying around where you can throw it in, then absolutely, why not get as many doors under one roof as possible? But uh, a lot of people are just trying to figure out a way to get in. And
Yeah.
so I tell people all the time, like, I'm not a huge fan of single family rentals. We had a portfolio of single family rentals that we ended up getting rid of. We still have, I think, a couple left, townhomes and things like that. But I mean, we've really gotten out of that space. But a friend of mine who runs 5T Management, he loves them. Low barrier of entry, low risk. You know, uh, but for me, like, I was actually just working the numbers with some young guys yesterday, and it's just like you could literally make money for 3 years, and one set of capital improvements on the building will wipe away 3 years of investment. 3 years of income. Because you could make, net out $500 a month on your single family for a year. That's $6 grand for the 3 years. You're at 18 grand, and then all of a sudden you got mechanical failures, a roof failure, and some type of plumbing problem. You're out 20 grand, and there goes that whole 3 months, and you're in the hole. You know,
Yeah.
uh, so for me, it's like this game is always about volume, right? It's always about leveraging up, getting more, getting more, getting more, until the point where your portfolio supports your lifestyle. And so, the question of is when is enough or what's enough for a person depends on how many people you're trying to support, and
Yeah.
depends on what your lifestyle is shaped up like, and so I always look at everything as a net gain perspective, right? When I'm running when I run my performance, I usually try to hit $300 net per unit. You
three
know,
hundred dollars a door. Got it.
yeah,
Okay, I was gonna ask you that.
yeah. And if I can hit that successfully in my performa, then I feel like I'm doing right. And I always run a pretty conservative performa, so I usually run rent cheaper than what I can actually probably get it for. For example, we had a project where I ran the performa at $800 a door. We ended up getting like 850, 950 a door when we actually put it on the market, and we were still below.
So you're doing that just to be on the safe side?
Yeah, I mean, it gives you room, gives me room for error,
Yeah.
and it also allows me to help people. So what we do is we provide naturally occurring affordable housing, right? So there's no government mandate like with if you got low income housing tax credits or TIF money or anything like that that says we got to have X amount of units in our building as affordable, 80% AMI, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just do that, right? We typically uh, are 70% AMI on our rents as far as affordable, and so if I can squeeze my performer if I can squeeze everything to perform and still be able to offer an affordable place for somebody to live, then that's what we want to do. We want to create gentrification without the displacement, right? We want the people in the community to be able to enjoy the change that comes with their community, with the new businesses coming in, the new opportunities that are coming in, the new investments that are coming in. If you put in 20 years in a community, you should be able to enjoy, the good years because you dealt with the bad years,
Yeah, that's a fact.
And so like that's our concept. We want to bring the money into your community, but we don't want you to leave. We want you to be able to afford to stay so you can take advantage of that.
Damn.
Yeah.
No,
So
that's real, man. Um, so like my philosophy, I always tell people, like me, when I started, man, I bought a 3 flat. I lived in the basement. I basically lived there for free. So I always tell people, and then the next one I bought, it was a mixed use spot. I lived on top, I had my business at the bottom. I always tell people your first home, unless you're getting like a serious bag from like your 9 to 5,
mhm.
your first house should be a 3 or 4 unit building so that you can live for free. You can stay there for 2 years, 3 years, and then hold on to it, move out. What do you think about that as a strategy just starting off?
100% agree. I tell people that all the time. In fact, I was talking with a young boy who's a plumber for us, and he was like, "I want to buy my first property." He's young, so I mean, I'm talking like 22, young, didn't go to college, didn't need to go to college, became a plumber straight out of high school, and he's a bad boy. So he makes a good amount of money at 22 years old, and he's itching. He's itching to go out and get out here, and he sees it. Because he's working in them all day long, and
Yeah.
he sees it. And I told him the exact same thing. He's like, go out, don't go. If you're gonna buy, right, you're a single man, you don't have any kids, you don't have any major responsibilities right now. Go get yourself a 2-3 flat. Pick one of the units and live in the units and let somebody else pay for it for you.
Right.
I mean, subsidizing, you're creating your own housing and subsidization plan, because the worst case scenario is you pay the mortgage yourself, and it's just like you would pay the mortgage yourself. I said,
Right.
but
Exactly.
so best case scenario is somebody else pays it for you, and so at the end of the day, you're never losing money because you are always counting on paying rent or paying a mortgage or paying a light bill or paying this, and so if you can provide housing for somebody and they in turn can also cover your bills at the same time, like that's always a great way to get in. You know what I mean? Because you kind of double dip because you get your cash flow, you get your cash flow on it, but then you also reduce your life expenses. You know what I'm saying? So you are at the same time reducing how much money you normally put out in your life while having somebody pay to live in your building and pay for your mortgage. So I mean, I think that's a great way to get started. And I mean, and the reality is, if you find an area, you can get in a 2 flat for the same price as you would pay for rent in a year.
Yeah, man, it's surprising. I mean, a lot of 2 flats cost the same as houses. A lot of 6 units cost the same as houses, which is crazy. But no, I 100% agree with that. And it's not only saving money. I mean, it's increasing your net worth. You gaining equity, and you learning how to run a business, man. Because you could take that equity, refinance maybe 10 years down the road, and replicate it.
Yeah,
And at the end of
yeah,
the day, man, it's about creating a legacy, man, which is what
yeah.
everybody should be trying to do. So as you guys are building this massive portfolio, man, I mean, who are like the main players that like the key people both inside they have to do work in the building and also when it comes to making sure the deal gets done, who's on the team?
So I mean, we built a property management company. So
All the money, y'all just getting all
so yeah, our property management company is staffed with maintenance guys, managers. We have office admin here, but I mean, we're small. I mean, to be honest with you, like we are small. And as far as Chicago real estate goes, we compete against Pangea, who has a 12,000 unit portfolio across their whole portfolio. We compete with WPD, who I think has about 7,000 units in their portfolio across Chicago.
Wow.
So I mean, we are definitely small fish, but our goal now is 1,000 units, and so for us to get to 1,000 units, we have a partnership and relationship with CIC downtown. So for those who aren't familiar with CIC, it's a Community Investment Corporation. They're a CDFI here in Chicago. Their main goal, their main responsibility is to invest CRA credits into Chicago communities, and so they do our purchase and our construction loan all at the same time, and so they're one of our biggest partners. And like I said, as far as everything else, it's me and my dad and our staff of people. We're the ones who deal with everything.
So you're hands on when it comes to like plumbing issues and drywall and cleaning up. Is that
I mean, you ain't gonna see me there, banging a hammer, but I mean, well, look, that's what I started doing, right? When I first came back when I was out of school, my dad put me right at the bottom, property manager, and so I managed our south side. And so I was that guy, right? I was that guy you picked up. Hey, my toilet is this, and I'm there with a plunger, that's how I started, and I had an MBA. You know, I graduated undergrad and had a 4.0 on my MBA, and my dad said, "Guess where you get to start? Right at the bottom." You know,
Yeah.
but it was good because you know, now my property managers should come to me and they're complaining. I'm like, look, bro, like I've been there. I know what it's like to get that 9 p.m. call because somebody's, you know, bathtub is overflowing and, you know, or, you know, a pipe has bursted, you know, and so now you're sitting there, you know, fighting, spraying water all over the place and trying to salvage a problem. And, you know, so I've been there. I started there. But now, no, you're not gonna see me on my hands and knees dealing with a plumbing problem. I still do facilitate a lot of the calls. Sometimes our tenants will call me and say, "Hey, you know, I just like talking to you better." So, but you know, other than that, you know, my guys are fully equipped to deal with all of the problems on a day-to-day basis. I do oversee all of our construction projects, so I run and do all of our numbers for our construction. I work with all of our trades to oversee construction from beginning to end, though.
Man, that's what's up, man. I mean, you gotta pay them dues, but it's good because now you know about the business. You know, you can't get taken.
Yeah, yeah, I mean that's the truth, right? And I tell this to my guys all the time, right? And my little brother started working with us for a while, and I put him right at the same place, property manager, you know, and he hated it, you know. And I mean, to be honest with you, it takes a special person to
No, it
really enjoy
does, bro.
property management, you
Cause
know.
I got 7 units, bro. And I feel like I only get called in the middle of a football game or like when I'm out with my wife or on vacation. Like I feel like that's the only time
I know,
something goes wrong. You know what
I
I
know
mean?
it. You know, I mean, and that's why you delegate, right? Like that's why you gotta have that one person you can just call and say, "Go take care of it," you know. And so, I mean, the great thing for us is, you know, I have all of the trades on call. You know, so like if my guys can't take care of it because we do construction, you
Mhm.
know, it's nothing for me to pick up and have a licensed plumber, licensed contractor, carpenter, electrician, whatever, to go deal with a problem. You know, and then because we're giving them construction work, a lot of times I can get a discount on the maintenance work. You know, and so you know, it's a nice little ecosystem that we were able to create that kind of works for everybody, you know. And so when we're not in construction jobs, we're still able to keep our subs working, doing odds and end type of things, and you know, and then we jump back into construction, and you know, so I mean, right now we're vetting 21 more units, two different buildings, one on 71st and one on 62nd and King, you know, to pick up as a package deal, and we'll jump out of this project and right back into that one, you know. And
Damn.
so,
But if so, and y'all been doing this what 15 years, right?
yeah, give or take a little bit. Yep.
Wow, man. So let's talk about scaling. I mean, at what point do you need to? Is it like too much for like one person to handle? If I got a 9 to 5, like I got a 9 to 5 now,
Yeah,
and so I was like, okay,
you're about there, bro. You're about.
yeah.
I mean, but you know, like, if you're gonna maintain a 9 to 5 and try to do this, uh, I mean, you know, you get past 6, 7 units, you know, um, things start to get to be a little hectic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess maybe if you got a 12 unit, and but I mean, I tell people all the time, like, you know, hire a management company. You know, at the same, you know, you end up probably saving a little bit of money by outsourcing it, paying your 8%, you know, in management. Just don't let them nickel and dime you on the maintenance, and you can still just sit back and collect checks, you know, um, and give them carte blanche to do what they got to do. If you can find somebody that you like,
So how do you find it? Because you hear horror stories, man. They're gonna nickel and dime me. If a light needs to be changed, it's gonna be $150. If
yeah,
a unit needs to be flipped, it's gonna be two
yeah.
times the rent. Like, you just hear all these
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean it's hard. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, you know, I just took over an 18-unit building on December 15th. The owner was a Chicago guy, just moved down to Atlanta a few years ago, and he's sitting there telling me, you know, I put $60,000 into this building last year, and I'm walking through this building, I'm like, where did you put that money? Because it must be hiding in somebody's mattress because they didn't do any work here. You know, and I'm sending him pictures, and like I can just hear it in his voice, like he's just like, what is going on with my building, you know. And it's hard, you know.
Yeah.
It is hard to find reputable managers, and the ones who are reputable, they're gonna tax you because they know that they're good,
Yeah.
Like WPD is one of, I would say is one of the top in the business as far as just pure third party management, but they don't come cheap.
Yeah.
I mean,
So you
at
better
this
own
point,
that building outright then if you're dealing with
yeah,
them.
I mean, and so, it just becomes you setting terms, right? Negotiating terms. You're not going to nickel and dime. You're not, this is what this is what is covered by my management fee. This is what is covered, by, my maintenance and this like that, and so, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't win it all, you got, you just got to fire them when they're not doing their good job. You just fire them. And see, here's the other thing in Chicago. Everybody wants to be a property manager. Every realtor thinks that they can manage properties,
Oh no, I'm straight. I'm a realtor, bro. I'm straight. I ain't trying to deal with none of that, bro.
I have yet, and I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I have yet to find a realtor ran property management group that does a good job from maintenance to management. Most of them do a great job on the management aspect of it, but they're charging so much because they have to outsource everything for maintenance, and so they're getting charged, and then they're trying to put their fat on top of the charge that they got charged, and they're paying market rate, right? So they're already paying a market rate for somebody to come in to do work because they don't have enough volume or enough relationship to get a better price for the labor and the material and things like that, so they're paying already top dollar for the work to be done, and then they're turning around and putting their fat on top of it, and then they're turning around and handing you a bill.
So market rate is 8%.
It depends. So
Everything depends when it comes to construction.
Most people charge by size of building, so
Okay.
however many units. So for us, for example, for a 2-flat, I'm charging 10%, right?
Okay.
If that's the only thing you got, right, is if you saying like, I want you to manage our 2-flat. But what we've done is, because we work with receivers and we kind of figured out how to make the maintenance stuff work within our receivership, I've created a flat rate charge for maintenance for the people, and so I created a situation to where we charge $100 per unit per month for maintenance fee, right? So as long as we go in there and we don't have to open up the wall, open up a floor, or anything like that. So we'll deal with anything outside of the wall. We will deal with all of that, and there's no additional charge. So if I got to go over there 100 times, I'm gonna be over there 100 times. And that also includes snow removal, salting, cutting the grass, all of that. So I found, because of the way that I did things with the receivership, that we could do that consistently with the building and still turn a profit. Now, I'm not, obviously, right, I could go in and, because for our customer, we have customers who don't want to do that. And so I charge them $45 an hour. Right. So if I got to go over there and deal with a situation, and it takes 30 minutes, I'm charging you $45 for it. Right. So at the end of the day, the way that I see it is, if I create, so like you got 7 units, right? So if I just charge you $700 a month for your maintenance, and I charge you 8-9% for your management on gross collected rents.
That's an L. I can't do that.
Right. I mean, that's not enough, right? But for somebody who has like 20, 25, 30 units, but then here's the thing though, you don't ever have to take a call, right? You don't ever have to pick up your phone. All you're doing is literally collecting a check. And, some people like to pay for that. Some people like that, so, but, and to be honest with you, it washes out, right? Because at the end of the day, right, $700 in maintenance is $8,400 a year, right? That's your maintenance bill that is going to be exactly that. And so if you're sitting there and you have, and honestly, like, we can adjust it. Like if you have a building full of 1-bedrooms or a building full of studios, we might adjust it down a little bit to help you out, compared to if you have a building full of 2s and 3s. But also, like, if you have a building full of Section 8, I'm not adjusting nothing, right? Because I already know that that building's got to stay ready for any inspection at any given time, so, we're going to be in there doing that, right? But I don't charge you any more money. So to get you ready for a Section 8 inspection, all of that stuff is outside the wall. That's already what you pay for. You know what I'm saying? So for a lot of owners, it ends up over time working out for them because it's a fixed amount. They can budget for it, and they know it's not going to change. And the only thing that they now have to worry about at that point is capital expenditures, such as a new water heater or a new furnace or a new, water line or something like that. So
for some.
yeah.
So can real estate be passive?
100%.
How? I
My,
mean,
my investor, my investor don't show up ever. You know.
so what does one need to do to get to that level of, X amount of units paying for my lifestyle and I'm in Jamaica or whatever.
Well,
Because a
I
lot of
mean,
people, a lot of people hear real estate, it's a sexy word.
yeah,
They get in it and they like, you know
I
what I'm
don't
saying?
want this. This is not
Yeah,
what I signed up for, right?
yeah.
I mean, I think the best way is you find somebody like yourself, right, that is going to make this their life's work, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so, and that's the thing, like, it doesn't even have to be expensive, right? Crowdfunding has made this thing possible for anybody, right? So you could sit there and you could take 10 of your closest friends and say, look, we're all going to put up 10 grand. Okay. And we're all going to do equitable distribution off of whatever it is, right? So you can put up as much as 10 grand or as little as 1,000. And whatever we put up is what we put up. And whatever your distribution is going to be based off of the percentage of the pot that you own. So you say, this is going to be my job. So I'm going to be the general partner. So I'm going to make all the decisions. I'm going to make the selections on the properties. I'm going to do this. Your job is to sit back and get your owner's distributions at the end of each quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you go out and find the properties, you run the performance, you do the construction, you oversee the management, you do all of that. And all of the other partners that you have in that fund, all they do is just collect a check, right? So
Okay.
they get a distribution off of your net returns, you know.
So what's a good like rate of return that people should expect if I was to put together something like that?
Um, everybody needs different things, but I mean, the market on average does about 8%.
Okay.
So if you could beat the market, but see, here's the thing, like this is what makes real estate so dynamic, right? Because I can give you 8% cash on cash, but I'm still a better opportunity than the stock market because I give you depreciation, right? So I can give you free money too. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just about the cash that you're getting, but I can also reduce your tax burden at the same time. And so you could end up getting free cash flow on a quarterly basis without having to pay any taxes on it because your distribution wipes that all away, and you might be able to carry passive losses future. So when we actually sell the property, you'll have passive losses that you can attribute to the gain on the building and reduce your capital gains at the end of the whole deal.
Damn. That sounds like some
So
diabolical stuff right there, man.
well, that's that's like one of my mentors asked me this a long time ago is what business is McDonald's in? So if somebody came up to you and they asked you and they said, when you hear McDonald's, what business are they in? What would you say?
Well, I know what you're getting at, but burgers,
Right. That's
fries.
what the average person is going to say, right? But the
Right.
number one holder of real estate in America right now is McDonald's.
Yeah.
Right. So McDonald's does this because they like to own the land and they love the depreciation. Same for Amazon, right? Everybody's talking about, oh, Amazon got, all these tax refunds and everything like that. Yeah, because Amazon buys these big old warehouses and they get the depreciation from it. And so not only are they creating jobs, but they also own real estate. So they're getting all these tax deductions and everything like that. So you can do the same thing, right? So you can create, $300, $400 net per unit money cash flow, and then have another $400 a month in depreciation negative. So you offset your cash flow. So that $400 comes to you free and clear. So then you end up making,
Oh,
however much, let's say you got 10 units, right? So that's $4,800 a month. That's tax free.
damn. And that's how you pay $750 on your taxes, right?
That's how you pay $750 on your taxes.
Man. So okay. So how do you vet tenants, man? Because I know from having like my strategy is kind of similar to yours in that if the market rate is 1,000, I'm gonna charge about 950. Because I don't want people. I'm not trying to nickel and dime people to death because I want them to stay as long as possible.
Sure.
But I would imagine that having that many tenants, man, that's a headache. Like period. Even with like a good day for you is like only 10 complaints. You know what I'm saying? Like how do you vet tenants, man?
It's a multitude of things, right? So we make
How do you
everybody.
vet tenants and how do you keep tenants?
Okay, so we vet tenants. So we have a process, right? So everybody has to do the initial walkthrough, right? Because that's our first chance to interact. And so like my managers will go out and they'll do a tour of the unit. But really what we're doing is we're trying to see who this tenant is, right? Do they show up on time? If they're late, are they going to call? If they can't make it, are they going to be responsible and tell us that they can't make it, or are they just not going to show? So we're vetting this tenant starting from that very point. I'll be honest with you, like I market on Facebook. I'll stalk out their Facebook page. I want to see what they post on Facebook, what's important to them on Facebook, and then once they get to the site, how are they interacting with my managers? So my managers will call me after and we'll have a little quick debrief and say, okay, what did you like? What did you not like? And so we're trying to pick that up. We pre-screen, so we determine affordability, because a lot of people get this part wrong. Affordability is either 3 times your take home or 30% of your gross, right? So those are 2 different ways to calculate of true affordability. And so I typically, because it's just easier math, I just take 30% of your gross, right? So, for example, if you want to rent an apartment from me and it's $850 a month, you got to make 2,900 gross, right? So very simple. So if you can't qualify through that, then you don't even get to walk through. I'm not wasting my time. I'm not going to waste your time. After that, and let's say you get through the walkthrough, you do the tour, you want to see the building. Okay, so then you got to fill out the application. We'll email you the application, the background check, the credit check, all of that. Honestly, I don't really care about your credit score. I believe it's important, but it's not important for me, because I also understand that you could have a 600 credit score, but you could be coming up from a 500 credit score, right? So you spent 3 years of your early life jacking up your credit because you was trying to figure things out. And then for the last 2 years, you've been trying to get yourself back on track, right? So, so I'm not so much worried about the score as to what your credit profile actually says. Like in the last couple of years, how many missed payments are you making? How much revolving debt are you carrying? And so I'm looking at this and say, okay, you make $2,900 a month, but I see a $30,000 car note, and I see, $1,500 in open credit cards here, and I see something in collection over here, and so I'm like, okay, yes, technically this you can afford this, but based on your lifestyle, you can't afford this,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I break down the credit report, so that I really start to get a real look at how you're living your day-to-day life, and then if you make it through that and you make it through the background check and we schedule an interview. So then it's, bring you in, and whoever's going to be living in the unit, you got to come in and sit down and meet with us. And we have a nice little conversation. I learn about you learn about us, how we do everything. And then if everything goes well, we offer you the unit, and so, it's a process, right? It may take a week, it may take 2 weeks. We're definitely checking references. We're definitely checking your job. We're definitely qualifying your income, doing all the stuff that pretty much everybody else does. So all of that is happening all simultaneously as well. And then keeping tenants is all about operation, right? Performing, taking care of tenants' problems, keeping them comfortable in their home, doing the things that you say you're going to do, and being compassionate, right? Especially in this day and age, everybody has something going on, right? With the pandemic and everything like that, people's lives are kind of volatile. And so, as long as they're, doing their best to pay their rent and, communicate with us and things like that, we generally try to work with our tenants, even to our own demise sometimes. But, like I said, this is a people business, and so you have to consider the person with every decision, right? So there is no, okay, like you got some companies like Pangea, they're like, you didn't pay your rent, eviction, like 5-day notice, eviction,
Yeah.
it's a machine, and we're not quite that way. And we understand it's going to cost us a month rent, 2 months rent, whatever, but we win more times than we lose, and so, we're willing to do that, and we're willing to accept that risk, but at the same time, I wouldn't be willing to do that if I only had a 3 flat, like if I only had, those other 2 units, I can't afford to do that, right? I got to be a little bit more rigid, and so, that's kind of how it goes. If you got more volume, you can kind of absorb a little bit more, and it gives you more flexibility to be, more generous. But At the end of the day, we have obligations, right? We got to pay our mortgage. We got to pay the water bill. We got to pay the light bill. We got to take care of the building. We got to be able to provide maintenance. So you have your obligation. You got to pay your rent. There is no gray area with it, and so you have to do everything in your power to pay your rent. And we report to the credit bureaus, so we work with an agency to report good paying tenants and bad paying tenants, so, that's something that we started recently is as a reward for our good tenants and, as a punitive measure for our bad tenants is to be like, look, this is going to affect you. So,
when you do the initial credit check or background check, who pays for that?
well, we take an application fee.
Okay.
So we apply the application fee to the background check. And then whatever, sometimes we randomly will do like a national social security check. And there's a few other things that we can check with our background check. And so all of that is part of the application fee. So our application fee is purely for your background and credit check to cover those costs. We don't actually take any money from that.
What's your thought on like separating utilities? Is that because I've heard, at first I was like all about it, but then I talked to another landlord who has big units and they was saying that not separating utilities was better. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so the Cook County, there's a new tenant ordinance coming down from Cook County, and then also you got to understand the Chicago residential tenant landlord ordinance as well to really understand if that's something that you want to do, right? Because that adds another level of reporting that you have to do, right? So anytime a new tenant moves in, you're gonna have to advertise. You're gonna have to let them know what those bills are,
Oh, wow.
And so, especially with the Cook County one that's getting ready to be passed through the Cook County commissioners, that's going to be a part of it, right? That level of reporting is going to be a part of it. So if you pay the utilities for everybody, you are now going to have that reporting obligation. And if you don't, then you could be open to facing punitive damages and lawsuits from your tenants. So as a person who is against, being sued, I really want to simplify my life, right? Which is why we've gone from the security deposit, right? It seemed like with security deposit, you were just always open to being sued. And so, but like we have a boiler building, so, for example, we pay our gas, we pay the heat for our boiler, we pay water for all of the buildings. And so now we'll be obligated to share, that heat cost for everybody because that's going to be something that is probably going to be added to the Chicago landlord ordinance.
So yeah, because I was thinking like, if they pay their own heat, because heat costs so much. And when you're not paying it, you just let that thing run. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Well, but that's why it's great with a boiler building because I can control it. I control the thermostat,
You
right?
control it from
So,
your phone. You got like an app or something.
well, we have we we have the device in the basement of the building,
Okay.
so the thermostat is set in the basement of the building, and so we can control the thermostat from the basement, and so we set it at like 70, and then if you get cold, then plug in a furnace, plug in a space heater or something like that. But so, but yeah, I mean with forced air, no, not a shot. You control your own, because like we had a building over on the west side. Like these folks had their heat set on 80 and then had their windows open. And I'm just like, y'all are crazy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
y'all are crazy.
So what do you say your biggest struggle is as you try to grow? Because right now, I heard you say the goal is to get to 1,000. What's the biggest struggle, and what when you are trying to grow and trying to get financing? Well, number one, what's your biggest struggle? Number two, like what are things that you need to have in order to get financing,
Yeah.
so that you can grow?
Access to capital is always the biggest struggle, right? Not necessarily debt, but equity, right? Finding partners who are going to be willing to joint venture in with us to provide us capital so that we can continue to acquire and do everything that we want to do. So we're constantly selling ourselves and talking to people, to try to drum up some more capital and also selling to our current investors different ideas and things like that, because we've proven our model works, and we've delivered the returns to them that make sense for them. And so, they're happy, but, trying to take that and scale that up for some people, it's a little bit harder of a conversation. Um, but that's kind of been our biggest thing is we're now kind of at the end of being the small fish and we're trying to jump into being like that middle fish. And so that transition is a little bit hard because now our typical deal may have had $50,000 to $100,000 or $200,000 in equity in it, and now we're trying to look at deals that have $500,000 to $1 million in equity into them. It's a different conversation. So that I would say that's probably like our biggest hurdle in trying to continue to grow is to find more equity investors and more access to capital. And then what was the second question?
I was just saying, I know the first part was, what's the biggest struggle and what do you need to have ready? What do lenders want to see or investors want to see as you try to grow?
A team, you know, a team, um, and a company, right? They want to see a company, right? They want to see, are you structured properly? If this situation happens, who do you have that can deal with this? If this happens, who do you have that can deal with this, right? You're only as strong as your team, right? So how good is your CPA? How good is your attorney? What's your plan for property management? What is your plan for maintenance? So they want to see that you have capacity to actually do what you want to do. And the reality is, as an individual, you can only do so much, right? Like even with me, as this is my full-time job, like if I was out here pounding the streets and doing my management and the maintenance and all of that, like I would probably be burnt after about 7 to 10 units. I mean, at that point, you're just on your knees all day long, fixing this, tightening this, doing that, painting this, turning over this unit. I mean, it's too much for one person. So banks specifically, they want to know you have capacity, and the only way you can show that you have capacity to do it is if you have a good team.
Oh man. Dope, man. Yo, man, you dropped a lot of gems, bro. Corey, I appreciate you taking the time out, man. Man, I wasn't expecting you to drop all these jewels, man, because you meet cats who you don't know. They say, "Oh yeah, I do this," and then you like, "Do you?" You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because
100%.
a lot of the stuff, man, that you talked about is dope, man. So I appreciate you, man. So yeah, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, Go Fish Village. If you want to watch episodes like this, go to www.gofishvillage podcast. If you're looking to sell your home or if you need help buying an investment property, hit me up at listwithmercer.com with Premier Chicago Real Estate. Would love to help you achieve your financial goals through real estate, man. Thanks again.
Hey, no problem, man, and best of luck with everything. Thanks for having me.